willing to learn and understand. Develop curiosity. Doing so removes fear and replaces it with curiosity and leads to discovery. I absolutely get that in our time-poor world, so many people just want the how, as in, just tell me how to do it. But when you only go with the how, without understanding the why, you are giving away a bit of your higher individual self. Hi there. So, before we dive down any more science-based rabbit holes, it's important that I address a very real factor you're just not going to see in a published paper. Now, one of the defining themes of this whole COVID-19 panic-demic, as I call it, is uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds fear, and fear triggers that fight or flight mechanism, which in turn not only shifts our metabolism to burn a lot more sugar, this also acts to compromise our immune system. So while the initial panic of COVID-19 has toned down because the death numbers haven't failed to materialize and toilet paper is back on the shelf, the lingering uncertainty is actually killing us in other ways. It's actually kind of like if we were on a ship adrift in the Pacific Ocean, the great vastness of the Pacific, with no course and no power. So while we're afloat and alive and not facing the fear immediately, that fear generated from uncertainty just permeates our daily existence. We don't know what to do, but we know we need to do something. And what do? Hey, we jump on social media and argue about whether to wear a mask or not a mask, all the numbers and stats, the conspiracies, civil liberties, Dr. Fauci, and of course, Sweden. We create well-intended infographics about how droplets spread, sew masks with designs, unfriend, protest, and destroy. If anything, COVID has exposed this frailty of fear. Today's fear response, though, is just a natural response. It's evolutionary hardwiring gone awry, and in some interesting ways. We tend to project courage and knowledge and certainty to literally mask our fears and ignorance. We cling to established conventional rules we are familiar with as well trying to impose them on others when we actually need new rules. And this is exactly what has transpired for the most part. People are dying of COVID. Ergo, we need to ubiquitously wear masks, distance, lock down, and shame others who do not comply. It's really time we admit we simply don't know that much. And this especially applies to our well-intended political leaders because so many people are looking to them for leadership. Now, admitting one is mistaken or misguided takes more than leadership. It takes those proverbial brass balls. And I'd like to use the example of Professor Timothy Noakes, MD, PhD, because he's probably the best example of this. Once we can learn, we can accumulate knowledge and find a way forward. In Dr. Noakes' case, he personally lost 60 pounds and reversed his type 2 diabetes into remission, but through this has become a leader in the health movement. Yours truly has pioneered years earlier. Now, Dr. Noakes forms the template of how each of us can create positive change on a personal and global scale. Start by being the example instead of being part of the herd. Now, in case you haven't noticed, the COVID-19 cheese has moved, and it's moving. And it's pretty obvious it's moving through the population in spite of lockdowns, masks, social distancing, and the other stock off-the-shelf actions being implemented. Now, if you follow me, you know I'm strongly advocating we prioritize optimizing our immune system function over everything else as a strategy to combat COVID. And all while we're protecting the most vulnerable in the population. Now, if this is your introduction to Peter and his alternative universe, I'm going to tell you Karibu, as my friend Simon Matui would say. Fortunately, I'm not alone. There are a lot of great scientists and clinicians collaborating on finding a solution to COVID-19, and the emerging data points to boosting immune system function as the best way for most of us to conquer COVID-19. That is, if we're able to stop being fearful and fixated on the death and poor outcome numbers. So let's stick away from that. Now, while being a biologist gives me a leg up on the science of COVID, being a biologist who is actually looking into the science shows me how much I don't know and keeps me saying to myself, the more I learn, the less I know. This isn't a bad thing necessarily because it keeps me curious and working hard to learn and understand more rather than being reactive and paralyzed by fear and becoming a know-it-all. This is no different for you. So, be willing to learn and understand. Develop curiosity. Doing so removes fear and replaces it with curiosity and leads to discovery. I absolutely get that in our time-poor world, so many people just want the how, as in, just tell me how to do it. But when you only go with the how, without understanding the why, you are giving away a bit of your higher individual self. I want you to rise to it. Knowing the why empowers the how and empowers you. Now, this doesn't mean you have to go do a deep dive down the rabbit holes of understanding COVID or health or human performance. That's my job. But it is also my responsibility to communicate why as much as the how to empower you. Now, COVID and the fear it is fomenting are no different. We should all have a healthy fear of COVID. However, we have gone way past this with this initial overarching panic. Remember the great toilet paper shortage of 2020? And now, with the uncertainty of COVID permeating every aspect of our lives, this has resulted in little intelligent conversation, both at the mainstream level to our personal interactions. Stop and think about this in the context of your life, because we all can do better. So, get away from the fear. And on a bright note, I'm seeing a lot of insightful collaboration at the clinical and research levels, which I'm going to be sharing with you in an upcoming vlog. And I'm preparing you for this because it's a lot of science. In today's soundbite world, it's long and it would be swiped away into Instagram abyss unless someone is truly motivated. That someone is you, to be curious, open, and learn from and discover. Hopefully this information I am providing today removes a lot of that uncertainty of the direction and action you need to take and provides you with the motivation to begin your journey to optimal health. Stay tuned, be curious, discover, and you will discover yourself. Thanks very much.